So have those backup plans to make sure that your finances, that your business finances going into a crisis doesn't cause a personal financial crisis.
Welcome to the On Purpose Investor Podcast with your host, Eric and Tiffany Vogel. We spent several hard years building a rental property portfolio so we could have more time with our family and live our ideal life. Finding your path can be difficult, so we're here to help guide you along the way with lessons, tips, and tricks to design and implement your dream life through real estate investing. Now sit back, turn up the volume, and get ready for this episode of the On Purpose Investor. Welcome back to the On Purpose Investor Podcast. I'm your host, Eric, with my beautiful, lovely co-host,
Tiffany.
So Pathfinders, welcome back to this week's episode, Personal Finances. This is episode number 33, and we're super excited to have you here today to talk about how you can get over any hurdles you might have in getting into investing, and maybe you have some personal finance issues, but we're going to talk to you some strategies on how to get those things in line and how to structure your personal finances so that, that's not running your life. You're running your life, you're in control, and the bills that are coming in are not. So right. Let's dive into this episode.
A lot of people are hesitant to get into real estate investing because they think they have too much debt or there's no way they could find a loan. Yeah. Or they have some other personal finance issue, or maybe they're afraid of debt. I love watching Dave Ramsey. It's entertaining watching him.
We don't follow Dave Ramsey's platform. We don't do the Peace... What is
Financial
it called?
Peace.
Financial Peace University.
We have credit cards.
We do have credit cards. We have a lot of debt. So Dave Ramsey would probably have a lot to say about what we do. But we do love what he tells folks about managing their personal finances.
Yeah.
I think it's great. Like Tiffany said, we watch it most mornings. We'll watch an episode or two, just hearing what people say when they call in.
Yeah, just YouTube videos. They're like 10 minutes long. It's good entertainment just to hear what people have going on. And one of the quotes that we really like that he says is, we buy things we don't need with money we don't have to impress people we don't like.
Man.
And that resonates because when you're purchasing things with consumer debt, you're making a choice to buy things that you don't have the money for.
That's right.
We personally use debt to purchase assets that cash flow. So we go more with the rich dad, poor dad, Robert Kiyosaki philosophy. But when we first got started, our personal finances, mine were in a great spot. Yours were a little wonky.
Well, I had that giant car note.
Yes.
From a negative equity rollover.
Right.
That, I don't know, that when I finally realized what situation I was in, I was like, oh my goodness. I cannot believe, I paid $18,000 for this Camaro in 2014, and I got a trade-in credit for like $9,000 3 or 4 years later to roll it into a $35,000 Malibu.
Right.
And I was just thinking to myself, hey, I can afford the $450 a month.
You looked at that monthly. You didn't pay attention to the dollars.
I didn't realize that over the course of the full payout on that monthly, that I would have had two cars that MSRP'd probably $50,000 together, but I was ending up paying like $75,000 for that.
Right.
And I ended up paying like twice as much for that Camaro than actually I thought I was buying it for.
Interesting.
After I'd paid for all of the interest and the rollover.
Okay.
So it was just, it was eye-opening when I could finally sit down and just come to terms with it that I made bad choices.
Yeah. So to all the people that were there in your life at that time, talking to you, Josh.
Yeah.
It was a bad decision.
It was. And all I could see was that, hey, I worked my butt off to go through college. I worked my tail off to figure out how to be a teacher. I got a job. I was making more money than I'd ever made before.
You were serving in the National Guard. You were doing all the right things.
I was doing all the right things. And I said, it's time to reward myself. And what I did was the biggest financial disaster that I could have ever made.
But we decided we were going to sell the Malibu.
And we lost money. Yeah, we lost money on that Malibu.
We wrote a check to the loan to pay it off so you could sell it.
That's right.
And then you bought what? Your truck?
That's when I bought my pickup truck.
Okay.
Yep.
So when we first got started, we had to restructure some of our personal finances.
Restructure Eric's personal finances.
Yes. But it showed us we had to be in a good spot personally
Yeah.
to be able to go and get millions of dollars in real estate loans.
Yeah. We couldn't have made those leaps and bounds into rental properties if we were still servicing bad debt.
Right.
And not only just the financial responsibility of servicing that debt, but the mindset around it.
Right.
That I think that was more important than the actual servicing.
Yeah. And we got to where our personal finances, we had a mortgage, we had no car debt,
Mm-hmm.
and we had student loans.
Yeah.
That was the only debt we were carrying. So when you hear Dave Ramsey talk, I think it's great to follow his philosophy to get yourself in a good spot financially to
Yes.
be able to take on what we consider to be good debt, which is backed by a cash flowing asset. Dave Ramsey's very much against it because he wound up with a lot. I think he said 2,000 houses
Yeah.
on 90-day loans
Yeah.
to flip them. So he was doing a mix of wholesaling and flipping,
Mm-hmm.
and he had a ton of loans that all came due about the same time.
Yep.
And he went bankrupt. So when you use debt, it's like a chainsaw. You can do really good things with a chainsaw, or you can do really bad things with a chainsaw.
That's right.
So
Chainsaw analogy here.
hey, I'm not the only one that uses it.
Maybe we can call Husqvarna and say, hey, you want to put a chainsaw sound
You
in
should
here?
change out the TV with just a mounted chainsaw.
Just put a chainsaw back
Yes.
there.
But the big thing is know the difference between good debt and bad debt.
Yeah, for sure.
You can use debt like that chainsaw as a tool, but you have to use it responsibly.
Yeah.
And with the car situation, you did not use it responsibly, and it created a nightmare.
I tried my best to make it a venture by driving Uber on my off time as a band director. So I would, during the non-marching band season, I would work a traditional, 7 to 3 o'clock job most days. And I lived in Thomaston or Heard County. And what I would do is at like 4 or 5 o'clock, I would drive to Atlanta and sit and wait for Uber rides, and I would drive around. And I made some money, and I made enough to cover that car note, but oh boy, just myself, today's version of Eric is looking at that version of Eric saying, you idiot. The value of your time spent driving that Uber, if you had just invested that in educating on how to wholesale or how to flip or how to do something, I could have a million X'd my return.
Yeah, but let's say you're in that situation still, where you have a car note, you don't have the cash to get out from being underwater. What if you drove, not for Uber, but Uber Eats or Instacart or something like that, where you could have an earbud in and do the education.
Yeah.
So you can layer that.
The thing is, I wasn't layering.
No.
I was jamming out to Fleetwood Mac and Disturbed. So
That's an odd
it's
combination.
a very odd combination, but that's my taste.
Hey.
So yeah,
truth
like
is.
she's saying, if you do have a bad car note, or maybe you have a couple of bad car notes, and you got a couple of drivers in your house, put that car to work.
Yeah.
Find a way to satisfy that car note with, 2 to 3 days a week of y'all getting after it and y'all hustling
Right.
after finding a way to use that, amenity, whatever it is, the car, the lawnmower, the pool in your backyard, something that you're paying monthly on. Find a way for it to generate income to cover itself.
Right.
And then some.
Yeah. I mean, cars are a big one. Houses, make sure your housing expense is not more than about 25% of your income.
Right.
There's a lot. I mean,
And-
Dave Ramsey is the best for learning how to get your personal finances.
And thinking creatively on how to master, a personal finance nightmare. Let's say you do have a house that is like 50% of your income, your household income. Is there anything you can do with that house to help you bring the note satisfaction down to like 25%?
Right.
Well, you could Airbnb out one of the bedrooms in your house. You could rent out garage space. There's, the website called Stow It. You could use Stow It to rent out your garage space for someone to park their car in.
Yeah. We've talked about on our new house, renting out the pool.
We're renovating a new house right now, and hopefully by the time this comes out at the end of October, we're holding a newborn and Otto in our new house.
Yes.
But, it has a big pool in the backyard. We've never owned a pool. We didn't buy this house for the pool, but there is a pool, and there's a lot of need for people to want to host events at a pool. And they, typically don't want to do it at a community or municipal pool. So we've really talked about renting our pool out, on Saturdays in the summer, that we can go on a vacation and someone can rent our pool out on a Saturday and a Sunday. And that could very well satisfy part of the mortgage payment that month.
Definitely.
And it's just, but you have strangers coming over to your house. Well, that's why you have security cameras, and that's why you pick the people renting it carefully, and you set rules.
Well, and
and you educate.
The company you rent through provides insurance. Like, there's a lot of things. It is a risk, but the reward for us seems worth it. So that's not saying we're going to do that for sure.
But if you want to host your next family gathering at the Vogel Estate pool, stay tuned.
Yeah, we'll give you a signed copy of the book while you're hanging out too.
That's right. And the speaker system outside is just going to be blaring our podcast. So,
I mean, that's a win-win.
What's not to enjoy?
Yeah.
I'm kidding. That would be awful.
Sounds terrible. So another thing with personal finances that you can do to kind of get ahead is reserves.
Yeah.
It's key. A lot of times people want to have a certain amount of money sitting in a savings account.
Yeah.
Our philosophy is a little bit different. We view it as you want access to cash or access to cash. Something we learned from Gary Johnston, one of our teachers. So you want to have
cash or access to cash.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we don't carry tons of cash because of inflation and the interest rates are just abysmal, but we have access to cash.
Yeah.
Where we could, we're restructuring some of our business debt right now. And there is no doubt that we could come up with a significant sum of money. We're going to pay interest on it, and that's okay with us because the structuring works, but we have access to cash. So that gives us the reserves that we need to feel comfortable with the amount of debt that we have.
Yeah.
If you're not comfortable with that, have 40, 50, 100,000, whatever amount of money that makes you comfortable sitting ready to go so that you can cover unexpected events.
So how is someone that is in, let's say, $5,000 to $10,000 a month in debt servicing on things that they're upside down on, they can't sell it, and they want to get into being an investor of sorts or an entrepreneur, they have no extra money, their debt service is through the roof. How are they expected to get caught up and started?
There's a lot of levers you can pull. And I am by no means the expert. I just watch a lot of Dave Ramsey, so I'm regurgitating what I've heard from him.
Well, don't sell yourself short, Tiffany, because you went to Georgetown and Georgetown Finance, right?
Yeah.
And what you did there, you were looking forward to being some type of, what is it called, a financial advisor of
corporate
sorts,
finance,
right?
So
but
business.
You learned strategies for people. Well, corporations.
Yes.
But could they not be applied to people as well?
Yeah, potentially. I think if you have a large debt service and there's no way to get out of it, you have to change your income situation.
Yeah.
The way you described that, there's a couple levers you can pull, but when you're that far underwater, it's got to be an income solution.
Yeah.
Or, as Dave says, beans and rice, rice and beans. Yeah. You don't spend money on anything. You're eating ramen noodles. You're going back to the early adulthood days, and
right.
You sacrifice. You have a cell phone, but it's probably not on a crazy data plan. It's like a jitterbug, like the old people phone that can call 5 people.
Jitterbug?
Yeah, do you not remember those ads? Oh, you watched The Price is Right, gosh. And they had all kinds of ads.
Tiffany.
Good stuff.
Yeah, so change your income. That's strategy number 1.
Yeah.
And by changing your income, you're talking create a side hustle, look for better jobs within your industry, better paying jobs within your industry, or find a way for those things that you're servicing the debt on to generate income. We live in a world today that you can go online and just Google something like rent out my broom. Right, and no, it's like a really strange.
Are there going to be like
thing.
Witches? Going after your broom?
Like house cleaning stuff. Okay. So, let's say you have a lot of power tools in your garage, and maybe you have a debt service on that, right? Or maybe the garage has a debt service, and you just go on Google and say rent out my tools. I promise you, there's an organization or a platform or a company out there that helps you to set up how to rent out your tools, right? Or maybe you're renting out your front yard, or you're renting out your ATV, or you're renting out your car.
Or sell the stuff too. I mean, that's another option.
On the selling it, a lot of times people are upside down and they can't get what it's worth.
Another Dave Ramsey recommendation is you sell the item, you go to a credit union or a small local bank and ask for a personal loan to cover
the difference.
So let's say...
So you're no longer servicing a $20,000 note.
You're servicing a $5,000 note.
Because you could only sell it for $15,000.
And then you can pay that off a little bit faster.
Yeah, that's a great strategy.
So let's say you have a $30,000 car that you can sell for $25,000. So you get a $5,000 car loan. And then you go... Or let's say you get a $10,000 loan. You put $5,000 towards the car you just sold off and $5,000 to go buy a hoopty, as he says.
A hoopty.
A car that will just get you from point A to point B.
Yeah, and
then you pay those off, and then you save up, and then you go get a nicer car.
Yeah. I think a lot of people would find a lot of more success and fulfillment in their life if they could embrace delayed gratification. No, I don't need this Camaro now.
Right.
You know, because if I could just see where my life was going and what my future held, I really enjoyed my Camaro. But I think I would enjoy it a lot more when I'm like 40.
Yeah.
When I can buy the souped up version, the convertible, the nice wheels, nice exhaust, big engine. Like, I would enjoy that a lot more than the version I had.
Right.
Because I had just, a little baseline model.
You had the 20-year-old model.
Yeah. So, I don't know, just embracing that, you know what, I'm going to push this off a little bit so that I can just, be more prepared for it. And it's not a debt burden. It's not a financial burden when I do it.
Right.
That's something I hope our listeners can embrace on that side of things. Now, when it comes to your business, your rental business or whatever entrepreneurial venture you're on, you're taking on debt that is, bringing in dollars. So that's a whole different avenue. But when it comes to your personal life, I'm not going to say don't buy it if you don't have the cash, but make sure that decision is not putting you and your family in a financial situation to where your business or you yourself cannot satisfy that debt.
Right. Because
one of the number one leading causes of divorce is financials, is finances. And it's so preventable.
Right.
It is so preventable. And it doesn't ever really come from a place of necessity.
Yeah.
Most financial strains come from a place of keeping up with the Joneses, impressing other people, having to have the newest thing, or just
buying things that you can't afford.
Can't afford, yeah.
To impress people you don't like.
It really comes down to that.
Yeah. I mean, I think the car example is a good one, but you also can look at the path we went down with building that house on the lake.
Yeah.
We were under contract on land and we're talking with a builder about building this house. Mm-hmm. And had we done it, it would have delayed us reaching financial freedom.
Oh, boy.
Because the note was twice what we were paying on our other house. It would have been too small of a house that we were building because we were trying to be like minimalist and it was a 1,200 square foot house. And we thought that was so great. Or I guess it was 1,700 square foot because it was the minimum. But oh my gosh, like we're in 1,700 right now. And the thought of moving into this new house that's twice the size, we're ecstatic about.
Yeah.
Because kids take up a lot of room. They're small people, but they have more stuff than we do, I think.
Yeah. It's one of those things where you have to evaluate how much has your life changed in the past 3 years. Look back on the past 3 years of your life and think, okay, 3 years ago, what was I doing? What was my financial situation? What kind of car was I driving? What was happening in my day-to-day life 3 years ago? And, for most people, it's going to be vastly different. It's, 3 years ago, I was at that old job. 3 years ago,
I didn't have kids.
Or 3 years ago, I didn't have grandchildren. Or, 3 years is a really good spectrum of time to say, okay, I'm not going to go make this big financial decision that I'm unsure of or that I am not ready to satisfy debt-wise, or I'm curious how I'm going to satisfy it debt-wise, because 3 years can change. In 2005, do you think anyone had any idea that 2008 was coming with the housing crisis? Some people did. Yeah, some people could forecast it, but the majority of people didn't. So, in 3 years, a lot can happen. I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's making me want to go down a soapbox that we probably don't need to go down, but
On where we're headed right now
Yeah.
in our current economy.
yes. Bank of
Well,
America's making some new loans that are
I
basically what
saw
they
those.
made
I
back
saw
in
the no minimum credit score, no down payment.
Yeah, they're ninja loans in essence, which is no income, job, or assets.
Yeah, they're what we call heartbeat
Yeah.
loans. If you have a
Or
pulse,
you can fog a mirror.
you can fog a mirror, you can get a loan.
Yeah.
And that is a scary thing that has come out.
Right. So if that
And-
continues and more banks take that
Yeah.
on and more people take that on.
It could be that Bank of America has all this onslaught of money that they are needing to loan out, and people aren't borrowing because the interest rates are higher.
Yeah.
This is just a way for them to get people in there to borrow loans, to borrow money, and to buy houses to keep the housing, market,
Yeah.
up.
Right. Which I guess all goes back to when you're taking out debt, make sure you're buying an asset that you can afford.
That's right.
And that if it's for an investment, that it will cash flow even in the worst circumstances.
Yeah.
Like we're looking to Airbnb our house, but we know it will work as a rental also.
Yeah, absolutely.
So have those backup plans to make sure that your finances, that your business finances going into a crisis doesn't cause a personal financial crisis.
It's just financial decisions have to always be made, in my opinion, with where your roadmap is going.
Yep.
When it comes to like buying our new RV, we have gone through many discussions about, okay, we're just going to go get it. And that's the choice. And then a month later, we're like, but this might happen this way. Don't make rash decisions. Does it fit into our 3-year dream to have that RV? Yes, it does. But
a financial crisis doesn't fit in.
A financial crisis does not. So we just, we're trying to make sure that we're staying very in touch with, does it really need to happen now?
Right.
And that's just one thing I wish everybody would do. Like, I have a hard time shopping now. I used to love just going to the store and buying like, oh, cool, and look at this gadget. I'm going to get this thing. But, now I go and I look at things. I think so many things. How many hours of work did it take to generate the income to do this? Or how much work did I have to put into that one rental to generate the cash flow to generate the ability to buy this? Is it worth all that work I had to put in to do that? Most of the time, I'm putting that thing back because it's not worth it.
It is so funny to talk about the transformation because you said don't make like hasty decisions.
I used to make very rash decisions when it comes to money. If I saw that there was this new show streaming on this one streaming device or platform and I really wanted to watch, I would just go buy it.
Well, and not just the $10 subscriptions, but if you wanted a new car, you would just go buy it. Or if you wanted big purchases.
Can't tell you how many times that I would just be driving down the road and be like, oh, wow, I like the color of that car. And I'd pull into the dealership and then I'd go through the whole rigmarole of, let's take it on a test drive. Oh, let's see if I can qualify. That's how I bought that Camaro. I was just driving home from work one day and I was like, man, that is an awesome car. I'm going to pull in. And I ended up driving it home. And I had no intentions on buying it. I had no preparation on paying for the note because the car I was driving was paid off.
I've never heard this. That's great.
So, it was
But you had a good income. And you had the most money you've ever had in your life.
Yeah, I had $5,000-$6,000 in the bank. I was living the life. And, I put that $5,000-$6,000 down and included the trade-in. And I made it work. And I felt so successful that I could qualify to do something on my own like that because I still hadn't bought a house yet. I had never really qualified for a big loan.
So you had some credit cards. And that was
I saw that as success, that I could qualify to finance that car. And that's what was success to me because I'd never tried it before. So might as well. Well, I had tried it before and I got turned down many a times because in college I'd do the same thing. I'd drive around to college. Hey, I got National Guard pay.
Oh, right. 10 grand a year.
Yeah, I got 10 grand a year. And they're like, listen, bro, you can't buy this car. Or unless you want to do
student loans I can use to pay the note.
I definitely
don't
said
tell me that as we
yes.
start paying on your loans.
Yeah. My
fun
goodness.
stuff.
Yeah, the personal finance journey for me has been quite drastic. So if people have questions on, hey, here's my situation, and I don't feel like talking to Dave Ramsey because I don't want him to beat me down and say eat beans and rice and beans, reach out to us because we might have strategies for you to help you along the way.
Yeah, Eric can commiserate and I can get you straight.
Absolutely. I will commiserate. You come over to the house, we'll drink some coffee or whatever and just
sit by the pool.
That's right.
Yeah. So what about, you don't think you're going to qualify for loans?
Yeah.
What do you do in that situation? And by loans, I mean real estate loans.
Okay, so we're back in the business talking about
I can't get started in real estate because there's no way anyone's going to give me a mortgage.
It starts with the relationships. And
With
those
who?
relationships start by going to meetups. So you go to these real estate meetups and you go consistently and you ask the right question. You don't have to ask the right questions. You ask questions, right? And you get involved in that circle. And you're slowly going to meet people that their role in real estate investing is not buying houses. Their role is loaning money. You're going to meet those people.
Yeah.
And so let's say you find a great house and you're like, there's no way I can qualify for a bank note because my personal
income,
finances are a garbage fire. They're a dumpster fire, Well, you bring that deal to one of those people at that meetup that you know that their whole job is to loan money. That's how they're real estate investors. Well, you bring them the deal and they tell you what they'll loan on it. And if you found a good enough deal, chances are they're going to fund 100% of that purchase. Right. And you might be thinking, well, there's no way people have $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 just sitting around to buy a house with. You would be quite surprised.
Well, a lot of them have it in retirement accounts.
Right.
And when money is sitting in a retirement account, you, as an investor, it's really hard to buy a house with that money because of some of the regulations and laws. Mm-hmm. So we are starting to transition into doing some loans because we have money sitting in a retirement account that we can't use to buy houses.
Exactly.
I mean, we could. Technically. But for the most part,
but
as a rule, we don't want to do that.
We couldn't work on it. We couldn't manage it.
Right. There's a lot of rules.
It'd have to be arm's length, like 10 arm's lengths away from it.
It's just not worth crossing that boundary. So we loaned it out to other individuals.
Yeah.
And you would look at us and not think we have money. That is one thing I'm really realizing is when you walk in a room, just because someone's sitting there with gray hair does not mean they're more experienced than the 30-year-old sitting next to them.
That's right. So
talk to everyone. That gray-haired man might just be getting started, and the 30-year-old might have more assets than half the room. You never know.
It's really a business where age, gender, race, sex, it's non-discriminatory. Yeah. You can be 100% more successful than the person sitting next to you, and they may have more tools than you. They may have more money than you. It's really all down to how much are you willing to hustle? How much are you willing to educate? And
how long you've been in it, too.
How long you've been in it as well.
Yeah, because, I mean, Graham Stephan's someone else that we follow for financial advice, and he started at 18.
Yeah.
I think he's like 35 now. He's getting old.
So he's been doing it for about 15 years, and, he's wildly successful.
Right. So just keep in mind, there are individuals out there with money.
Yeah.
Networking and going to the meetups and finding people and consistently showing up to the meetup. I know we got our first loans because they saw us month in and month out at the meeting. And
we talked about what we were doing. Every time we'd go there, we'd be like, hey, we put in 4 offers the past month.
Right.
Waiting to hear back, or we got 1 accepted.
Right.
So we're in due diligence right now.
Right.
And, they just saw that journey that we were taking.
And we asked questions, too.
Because we'd ask questions at the meetup like, hey, we're under contract. Does anybody have a home inspector? And then they might say, well, just go do this instead of doing the home inspector. And, thing is, a lot of people that say, do you know the Vogels? Well, they'd reference to us as, well, if you tell them something, they're going to go do it. We became known at that meetup as, if you give them advice that is actually good advice, they're going to do it. And they're going to show up at the next meetup and tell you how they did it.
Right.
Because that's what we would do.
Yeah. So I guess all in all, when it comes to your finances, make sure when you're spending money, you're buying it for something you need.
Yeah.
Not to impress people or for any reason other than like, you need it. I mean, don't buy things just, oh, I think that's cute, I want it.
Yeah.
When you're trying to grow a business, you have to give up things like that.
That's right.
Get your personal finances tied away as much as you can.
Pay off debt that is not asset or income producing.
Right. Get your personal finances squared away so that you're not worried about that. And then you can really focus on building your business and investing.
Build up a nest egg.
Right.
Save up, get a reserve going on. I know Dave Ramsey calls it the emergency fund of $1,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, I think if your personal finances are not in a good spot and you're not comfortable with it, follow the baby steps.
That's right.
Get comfortable, get your personal finances in a good spot, and then start investing.
Yeah.
And build up your reserves before you start investing.
But let's say,
have that $30,000, $40,000 or whatever it is that makes you comfortable just sitting aside, and then save up for your down payments.
Right. But if you are working toward paying off your debts and you're on the right track there, and you're, educating on real estate investing, and you found a great deal, don't think you can't do it.
Right.
Go to those investing meetups, build relationships with those private money lenders and those hard money lenders, and find a way to use their money and not yours to get in the game.
Well, or you do a half pie deal like we talked about, where you get half of the pie. Go wholesale it to another investor. You found a great
property and you show up to that meetup and you're like, hey, I found this great deal, but I can't fund it. And someone says, I'll fund it. I'll do everything.
You do all the work.
I'll do everything. On the financial side of it, you do all the work, and we're going to split the rent and the equity 50-50.
Right.
Who wouldn't do that deal when you have nothing to begin with?
Right.
I think you'd be crazy not to.
Yeah. Or you sell that deal to another investor, make 10 grand, 20
and use
grand.
that cash to satisfy your personal debt.
Exactly.
There's just so many ways to get out of the hole you're in and be successful.
Yeah. Don't let it hold you back from taking action.
Yeah.
While you're getting your personal finances paid down, be educating. I mean, the situation with your car and getting that whole mess cleaned up, we were educating.
Yeah.
And
big time.
Yeah. So
it cost a lot more than a seminar.
It's fair, but you learned a lot.
So final thought here, stop buying things that you don't need, that you can't afford, to impress people that you don't even care about.
Right.
Soapbox
That was
over.
The shortest soapbox of all time.
All right, take us out, Tiff.
All right. Thanks, y'all, for hanging out with us and listening to us talk about debt and personal finance. What lessons can you take from this podcast and apply to your life? Don't let the time you just invested go to waste. You only get one life, so live it purposefully. That's all we have for you today. See you next time.
Are you ready to discover and build your dream life? Then it's time to become a Pathfinder. Head over to onpurposeinvestor.com and sign up for our newsletter to get tips and tricks to help you find your path and get the latest from our blog. If you haven't already, we'd really appreciate an honest review on your favorite podcast app. If you're enjoying this show, share it with friends, family, and fellow investors. See you next time at the On Purpose Investor Podcast.